Hi, everybody. We're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Kristen.
I'm Dr. Erin.
And you are very, very welcome to our conversation spaces. We are two social science doctors who deeply believe in the power of curiosity and the necessity of analyzing culture through the lens of empathy and inclusivity so that we can all human just a little bit better. Because, we don't really know how to human. We're all just figuring it out as we go along. So in service of that, we talk about culture and stories and the power of stories. And we do that in coverage of Bridgerton and its race and bodies and how it talks about those things, to discussions about systemic racism, to talking about the books we really love recently and what's going on. And we love having conversations with each other, but we love even more having them with you. So however you are encountering this, be it on YouTube or in your earballs on a podcast, we hope that to hear from you, your reactions and comments on this episode.
We're here for our Good Doctors original series. We started out so we were such sweet summer children when we started.
Like the way you're saying it right now is like, we are gathered here.
Like
to grieve the death of what could have been a good show.
Oh, y'all.
Okay.
So this is our coverage of The Handmaid's Tale. We are in season 4. We are up to episode 10, called The Wilderness. We've already talked about this a little bit in our Handmaid's Tale Live with our good friend, Dr. Nadine Thornhill, but this is our more formalized, and we've had a couple of weeks to process, think about, to digest, The Wilderness. So this episode is entirely in Canada and flashbacks. It is almost entirely focused on June and how she is processing the information that we learned at the end of episode 9, which is that the American government and Mark Tuello are going to offer immunity to Fred Waterford in exchange for his information on Gilead. If you recalled from the end of episode 9, June was rightfully very upset about this news. So what we get is really her machinations, utilizing all of her connections, people who support her, from Commander Lawrence to Nick to the other handmaids in Canada, everybody, Tuello, to get to the place where we end up, which is, spoiler alert, whatever, the murder of Fred Waterford by the group of handmaids, including June.
But not including Moira.
Which we need to talk about Moira. We also get a lot of Serena in this. And on her power trip again. She's incarcerated on a power trip. Serena. Some weirdness with her and Tuello. So that happens. They certainly, in this COVID limited series, wanted us to see that. So we're going to have to be talking about that in season 5. But it's mostly, as the show is, mostly June. And how she gets from screaming at Mark Tuello to murdering Fred Waterford. So, Dr. Kristen, let's talk themes for The Wilderness.
Okay, I think we've got the weirdness with Serena and the
baby daddy. We're gonna call
show raising the possibility that Tuello's the baby daddy, which is what I think they're doing. 2 is June and Fred talking about how they miss off Fred. Mm-hmm. And 3 is how the murder was shot, executed storyline wise, and executed physically. So those are my 3. Do you have anything to add to that?
I think the only other thing I want to talk about is the taxonomy of June's clothing in this episode and in this season, which is real bizarre. And real intentional. So
let's crack on with Tuello and Serena. Let's get Serena
out of the way.
So first of all, I appreciate that bitch thinks she can demand special treatment for a criminal. Even though he's exonerated, he's still a criminal.
War criminal. Crimes against humanity.
He's still convicted. Is granted, because I don't think they're commuting his sentence. They're granting him his freedom.
Yeah.
Based on this. Anyway, so I love that she can do that, but also a good reminder again that the ideology of Gilead is a lot harder to kill than the state of Gilead, because she is, while I do not believe a theological true believer anymore, she will use what power she has in Gilead to the ends that she needs. And so she will do whatever it takes to like make Gilead still stand.
Yeah. And, you know, she is, you know, leveraging what power she thinks Fred has.
Yeah.
Leveraging being pregnant and leveraging like the popularity of the Waterfords in Canada, which we got glimpses of in this season. And she talks about, like, she uses the word constituency. Like, he has a constituency he has to communicate with. So what is Serena planning with all of this if she doesn't want to go back to Gilead because she knows the Putnams are going to take her baby and like probably prosecute her? Like, where is she going? I don't believe she's a true believer at all. I think she's always been interested in power and position.
I think she was a true believer at the beginning. I do.
Okay.
I do. When she wrote her book, like all the way at the beginning, like when she was an architect of this, I think that she is one of those women who is completely convinced that this was freedom. I've met lots of those women. Along the way, I think she turned into Phyllis Schlafly, which was what is the power I can get, regardless of my tenuous relationship with this ideology.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I think she evolved into a Phyllis Schlafly.
Yeah,
character.
because the ideology cut off her finger. I think you reevaluate potentially.
I think that was her break with Galadian ideology.
Yeah.
Was realizing that she wasn't immune to it, you know, which is a fascinating level of privilege. She is, I wish we spent more time psychologically with Serena. I wish we got her internal monologue like we got June's.
I know, seriously, because Yvonne Strahovski is like crushing it.
Acting the living pants off of this character.
Including letting us know, essentially like having eye sex with Mark Tuello.
And I mean, Joel from Parenthood is hot.
Don't get us wrong.
Don't get us wrong.
The way that scene played, man, the internet thinks he's the baby daddy, and I didn't fully agree until that scene.
Yeah, we had several of our Handmaid's Tale community making those comments, and I was like, man, I don't know. Let's wait and see. And then after this scene, we watched this episode together. We looked at each other. We were like, what?
They're at least wanting us to entertain the possibility.
Yeah, which I mean, like, it was weird that she got pregnant if she only had sex with Fred, because we were all pretty sure Fred was sterile. Like, that's why she had to have sex with Nick, because she had to get pregnant. So yeah, there was emotional music. There was eye gazing. It was a scene straight out of the romance books that Dr. Kristen and I read as though they were breath. And I was like, I am uncomfortable with that happening.
Yeah, I don't understand what we're trying to do here now. But his like weird involvement in this case, because once again, to quote Nadine, like, what do you do? His would make more sense if he is like playing both sides of the coin, because he's also he's also got Serena pregnant. So
yeah,
we're putting a pin in that.
Yeah,
I'm hoping they spend a good amount of time on that in season 5. I think we all know they probably won't, but I really hope they do. So thematically, where should we go next? I think we should go to the Offred.
Yeah, because what happens in June's machinations, she's getting the wheels turning on her plot.
Oh, why we should once again say that borders mean nothing in this episode. And she just like casually gets to meet up with Lawrence in a diner in the Magic Subaru. Cool.
You know, don't doubt the power of Subarus, apparently.
Well, I'll just say this. If it can like go in, if it can like cloak him invisibility, you're driving us to work when you're here in Philly, because maybe we can get through traffic faster.
Maybe we can avoid
Tioga Street entirely. Yeah.
On 95 in my Subaru. Yeah, Subarus have magic powers. Borders don't exist. again, I was just having this conversation recently with one of our Handmaid's Tale devotees, Amy, about the lack of show Bible and how frustrating it is to watch a show that, and as I was I was typing a comment to Amy about it. I was like, in the first 2 seasons, they set the rules. Like they were pretty.
It was why we're all in. We like rules. Humans like rules.
They were pretty consistent with the world they were building and the rules they followed. Yep. And then seasons 3 and 4 just like, and I feel like we need a murder board with like the strings on it to try and figure like what's happening. You can't connect things that they're doing, i.e. this magic Subaru across the border. But yeah, June eventually convinces them it's a good idea to let her visit Fred Waterford in jail. We were both utterly convinced that she was going to poison him with the whiskey, but
completely convinced
that was not a violent enough demise for Fred Waterford. And yeah, really cringy stuff from Fred in terms of calling her June and admitting that there were discomforts in my house, like real creepy stuff, not keeping his life of value with the stuff he was saying. But then they have this like chummy little conversation about Offred. Like she was a different person.
And I, like from a dissociation perspective, that makes complete sense for me. Like what, I can't remember, what's the word she says, like Offred was strong or something like that. I miss her strength.
I miss her strength. She said, I think she said, I miss her strength. And I was like,
I don't. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's a normal response to trauma to disassociate.
Completely normal.
In this episode, we learn that Rita is seeing a therapist.
Yeah. So guys, there's therapists in Canada.
There's therapists in Canada. But it's crystal freaking clear that no one else who lives in that house, including Luke and June, Moira are actively seeing said therapists.
Rita continues to be the hero of this show. So like the thing with the Offred dissociation is interesting. And I would like really chase it and unpack it if they had a show Bible, because we've already seen June disassociating in her trauma. Like we already saw that. That was the whole thing with the letters. And what was that, season 2?
And like
we've seen her do this.
That's the internal monologue was her disassociation. Like
we get this. And so I would really unpack this. I mean, somebody on our live said she was just telling him what he wanted to hear. Maybe I don't think she needed to say I miss her. Like I miss her strength to get him to trust her. Maybe that was her game. But because I don't trust that anyone knows what June is thinking at any given time, I just want to like note that this was a thing the show wanted us to think and kind of move on.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Again, anytime Bradley Whitford is on camera is valuable to me. I loved that she can just call Lawrence and that he got involved in this. I am interested by the idea that the relationships that June formed in Gilead are strong enough that she can call on these people. I'm not sure that they've done the work to show us that, but part of me liked it. I didn't trust it, but part of me liked that, like, yeah, she's going to call on Lawrence and he's going to come in. And like, this episode was built really well.
Yeah.
If they've had a show Bible, it might not have happened this way. But I was interested by that. And they agree to, trade Fred Waterford for 22 women who worked in the resistance, who, we didn't talk about race a lot this season, even when we had Nadine on. But I noticed
like a moot point at this point because they're so bad at it.
They're so bad at it. A lot of those women that came across that bridge were Black ladies, because that's what Marthas are apparently, and they only just get to be background material. And we get a rather valuable foreshadowing from Lawrence, who tells her, like, whatever they do to Fred won't be enough for you.
Yeah.
It won't be enough. at that point, I would say June was already knew that.
Yeah, she was already setting what was happening, what ended up happening. That was a part of that setup. So before we get to that, though, you want to talk about her clothing?
Yeah, because it's really interesting, and I know a couple people have commented on it throughout the season. We've talked about it a lot because I just can't understand why the person you've shown me, June Osborne, wanted to be or would continue to wear red.
Yeah, I don't get it.
But now that we're talking about this idea of Offred, she associates red with being Offred. She associates red with strength. Remember when she got rid of her handmaid's cloak in Chicago this season and she looked kind of sad about it?
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is a trauma response. I just can't trust the show, but I'll buy that it's a trauma response. But I will buy that she intentionally wore blue to go see him.
Yeah. So she wears blue at strategic points in the last 2 episodes. She has a blue scarf that shows up a couple of times. And I'd have to go back and rewatch the episodes, which I'm not going to do, to see if like every time she has the blue scarf, she's being manipulative, like Serena. We don't know. But she definitely wears blue to go see Fred, which was very interesting. And it's like the wifely blue as well. It was that same like muted. And
the show has been telling us all along that Lydia, June, and Serena are the same woman.
Yeah.
And that then Moira and Emily and Rita are their mimeographs.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so, the fact that she's wearing the red, as I've now dubbed it, the red coat of doom, when the final scene with Fred takes place, makes sense because I think that's her embodiment.
Like the power of like putting on Offred's anger.
Yeah, like that's her embodiment of Offred.
Of justice for all of the Red Center girls.
We can talk about ritualization and the emotional significance and symbolism of clothing, especially for incarcerated folks. I've never heard of an incarcerated person who puts back on their prison uniform as a means of resistance or embodiment, but it could have happened. Sure.
So Fred dies, obvs, and he dies exactly in the forest where they first took Hannah and June. They chase him the way that the eyes chased June. It is a amorphous, unclear group of handmaids that do it.
Except sans Moira. We do not see Moira.
We do not see Moira, but we see Emily and we see June, obviously.
Yep.
It's very reminiscent of the end of season 1 where they are all asked to stone somebody and June leads the uprising for them to put their rocks down.
And that, like, the circle of them around Fred's body, like, they love the symbolism at the show. That was
clear. And then when they hang him, it's don't let the bastards get you down. All of that is true. Now,
June said she wanted him on the wall, obviously couldn't be on the wall in Gilead, so they put him on the wall of that abandoned house.
Sure. A lot of people in our chat were like, that wasn't punishment. Like, that's too easy for him. He needed to pay for his crimes. He needed to do all of that. There's a whole bit where he's given back to Gilead, but then Nick, Eyebrows shows up and Eyebrows and June kiss very lovingly right in front of Fred. And Fred's like, that's sick, and all like and I was like, this is a high level of disassociation you're working at, Fred Waterford.
But I just have to interject real quick because I just saw my notes and I remembered when we watched it, because Fred keeps calling Nick son.
Yeah.
And
don't call me son. You call me son one more time.
We were so mad they missed the
Hamilton opportunity. Yeah.
So mad. We both, like, in my head I can hear Lynn going, call me son one more time. So good. Continue. Eyebrows shows up again.
So again, like, what is Eyebrows' role in Gilead at this point? What power does he have? What did he potentially give up? We know he's got a wife. I'm vaguely terrified that Janine's going to end up being his handmaid, which I don't think I can emotionally handle.
Or Esther. Like, Yeah, something's happening with Nick, and here are please, showrunner Bruce Miller.
Are we setting Nick up as to tackle Gilead? In one of the like interviews that Bruce Miller gave, he said we're going to learn more about Nick's role in the start of Gilead. I hope we do, because I would like to know then when is his true love of June what turned him to understand that Gilead was a shit show? Did he know it already?
Right.
What's going on?
And I wasn't. I think they wanted us to be upset, maybe, that Nick was married.
I wasn't. I was just really confused.
I don't see what choice he would have had if he is like now in charge of all the eyes, as one of our viewers suggested. Like
he has to be married.
He can't exist in Gilead without getting married, without getting remarried after his first wife.
Like he's not Jon Snow.
Yeah. So like, of course he had to do it. The Gilead is literally built
on hegemonic matrimony. Yeah. Like
exactly. Yeah. So I really hope that they don't drop that ball, and maybe they will keep a show Bible after this season. And I really have so many questions about Nick. Max Minghella was so good this season, and I want them to give him more Nick, please.
I was really caught up in the episode was really well filmed. And so there was like that moment of catharsis when Fred was on the wall. But the longer, and we said this in the live, the longer we reflect on it, the more we hate it.
Yeah.
Because it was just so everything that Gilead is, it's like the Gilead infected the handmaids. And so this is then how they behaved. But I am not a vengeance person. I like the slow torture of solitary confinement over the death penalty. So this wasn't justice
for me. Yeah, and I know for you either. And it was dramatically like shot brilliantly.
Oh, brilliantly, narrative wise, great job, guys. This is your Emmy reel. Is the Fred Waterford murder scene? Yeah,
it was. It was a fantastic hour of television. And the same conversation with Amy that we're having is like relevant to this, because there's a lot of really great individual episodes, but when you try and put them into the collective arc of the show, they don't fit.
No, that's when it starts to be jagged edges and you start to get frustrated.
Yeah. But they leave us in a really tenuous place, especially with June. She goes back after she murders Fred to see Nicole covered in blood. Not great, June. Wash your hands. And Luke comes in. And I think we need to talk about the Luke of it all and how confusing he was in these last couple of episodes. We talked about it in the live, but it's worth saying again, even if you didn't catch our live. Was there a time jump? Is he disassociating? He tells June earlier in this episode that she just needs to get over it and move on. We're not sure.
He sent her to Nick and made really sneery comments. And then at the end, the look on his face as he like slides down the wall.
Yeah.
There was a lot of conversation in the chat and the live of, is that like, this is the last time he believes, like he now can no longer believe that June, his wife, exists anymore. She has entirely become Offred. Is that the look? I'll buy that.
Yeah, it was clearly a look of devastation.
Yeah.
But like, we've seen evidence of Luke throughout all these seasons where he wants Fred Waterford to pay, where he has violent thoughts towards Fred Waterford.
This could be like what, I ran this by my husband and kind of brought this up, and his response was, I would want to violently hurt anybody who hurt you, up into the point where my hand was going to go around their neck and then I'd call the cops. Maybe. So it could be like, because John would very, very viscerally, and would be he has very strong reactions, but like, I don't think he'd ever go through with them.
No.
So that could be the same for Luke.
I guess. Yeah. It was confusing per usual. June is clearly going somewhere, knows she can't stay there. Is she on the run now because she's murdered Fred?
I think it's because when we take that, there's a scene earlier in the episode where she is staring at Luke, Moira, and Nicole from, like, they're at the kitchen sink or something.
Yeah,
so to
from
me,
outside.
what the show is saying is she's going to be on the run. Maybe Nick will be on the run and they live happily ever after and make new babies. I don't know. But I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I think we can pause now.
Yeah, I was about to say, we're going to get into a recap episode next week or later on this week, depending on when you're hearing this on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we'll bring up a whole lot more of some of the intel that Bruce Miller's Ask Me Anything on Reddit gave us regarding some of these characters.
Yeah, I think we'll save our hypothesizing for season 5 for this season 4 recap. And I'm just exhausted by talking about this episode.
Honestly, I'm like, I want to take a nap now.
I'm so tired.
Guys, thanks as always for sticking with us through 4 seasons of this
love
monster.
You guys so much.
We love it so much. We are only watching because we get to talk with you about it. And we're really, really honored that you give us your time as always. And we'll see you next episode for the recap wrap up.
See you then, everybody.